With the first month of 2023 coming to an end, I thought it would be interesting to take a look back at 2022 for one last time by talking about struggling rapper Lil Xan. Somebody who probably had the worst year of his life by just continuously embarrassing himself on social media over and over again and destroying his already very damaged public image even further. Now, if you don't know who Lil Xan is, he's the guy that blew up 5-6 years ago during the SoundCloud rap era with the song Betrayed and has just been on a constant fall off ever since. You might also recognize him as the guy who overdosed on hot Cheetos at one time, or as the guy who had an obviously fake relationship with Noah Cyrus, or as the guy who said Tupac makes boring music, while simultaneously himself also releasing music that sounds like this.
That shit is fucking trash, dog. Get the fuck off the airwaves.
So in this video I'm gonna recap every single Lil Xan scandal of the past year, and I'll explain why you should still not show him any sympathy despite him constantly begging for it.
On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram too, or your hair smells nice, is that new shampoo?
Alright, so firstly, Lil Xan blaming his drug addiction on his former manager. This one happened right at the start of 2022 and it infuriates me a lot because he's not holding himself accountable for his own actions, but instead tries to blame somebody else entirely who probably only wanted the best for him. So let's have a look at what he said.
Do you guys remember the whole Lil Peep, the story where his management was giving him drugs and you know, and it just wasn't helping out and all that? Well, that happened to me.
I already gotta interrupt this Instagram live here. This guy has no right to ever compare himself to Lil Peep. For those of you who don't know, Lil Peep obviously passed away in 2017 due to his drug addiction, and his team constantly supplying him with these drugs is what would end up taking him from us. Now, Lil Xan on the other hand, he just comes across as wanting to gain sympathy. Lil Xan is basically implying since Peep died from a drug overdose on tour, he would have ended up passing away in similar fashion had he not replaced his manager, which is disrespectful as fuck to Peep, and never mind to your manager, who I can't imagine actually wanted you to be a drug addict. Cause what would his motivation for that even be? Being a drug addict normally affects somebody's career negatively, and if your career is going downhill, your entire team suffers from it, including your manager. So what reason would he have to turn you into a drug addict if it only has downsides from his point of view?
Stat Quo. Remember that name, Stat Quo, because when I was on tour through 2018 to 2000, whatever, the world tours with Nicki and Juice and all that, I was a drug addict back then, right? And my manager was supplying me with the drugs.
Okay, did everyone catch that? Here, let me rewind this for you in case you didn't.
And my manager was supplying me with the drugs.
There is literally someone telling him what to say. You know what is a telltale sign of something being a publicity stunt for attention? Someone literally instructing a celebrity on what they need to do and how they have to talk. I mean, this man was one of the most popular rappers in 2018, and now he's embarrassing himself to a level where he has to sit here practically begging for attention, all in the name of a publicity stunt, during which he can't even remember what his lines are. This is truly embarrassing. Also, Lil Xan was pulled off a tour with Nicki Minaj and Juice WRLD back when he was popular because he didn't have an adequate supply of pills. So if your manager, Stat Quo, refused to supply you with pills from the get-go, like at the start of the tour he could have been like, we're not getting you any pills for this, you're gonna have to perform this entire tour sober, then who's to say that Lil Xan, who was at the peak of his career at the time, wouldn't just ditch Stat Quo to instead get a new manager who's willing to supply him? Cause let's be real, this guy has admitted to having been a drug addict, so most likely Stat Quo would have lost his job if he hadn't declined giving Lil Xan pills from the start. Or the other option is Lil Xan wouldn't have even gone on tour in the first place because he wouldn't have had his pills. So what choice did he have really? He had to get Lil Xan his pills if he didn't want to lose his job, or alternatively lose a bunch of money by cancelling the tour entirely.
I've always wanted to make this case known. He is a terrible fucking human being. You know,
he even had a doctor that gave him prescriptions.
And yeah. It just sucks. The industry just sucks.
So now Lil Xan is literally just repeating after the person instructing him, and it's like, he should have at least edited this before releasing it, because now it's just obvious that he doesn't care about anything he says. But is that really surprising? Because it's not like he has any integrity left anyway. And look, I just don't believe for a second that your manager wanted you to have a drug addiction. You would have to be ridiculously and cartoonishly evil for that. Because as someone managing an artist, you would obviously prefer it if your artist stayed sober most of the time, so you don't have to go through the trouble someone that is on drugs 24/7 typically causes. For instance, the possibility of an overdose, the physical decline of the artist, the price of buying all these drugs, or extreme down phases where the artist can't even perform. So there's literally zero benefit this guy would have from Lil Xan being a drug addict.
They just want to keep you alive long enough to make their fucking money, and if you die, even better for them.
At this point, he should just let the PR manager do this, because this is beyond embarrassing.
It's easier to manage a dead artist than an alive one. And that's what sucks about the Juice WRLD situation, is because Juice was one of the most talented fucking people, and now they have his whole catalog of music that did. And who knows if that's even what Juice's vision was. Like, you know what I mean?
So now he's attempting to gain sympathy and support from the Juice WRLD fanbase, which is also just like, come on, your music and Juice WRLD music, the style and lyrics may be somewhat similar on paper, and you were both drug addicts, but the music itself is not even remotely comparable. There's just no way that Lil Xan can ever come close to Juice WRLD, because Juice WRLD actually put effort into his music, and he was genuinely very talented. And there's also no way that Lil Xan can convert Juice WRLD fans into Lil Xan fans, because the drop off in music quality will be extremely noticeable to anyone that goes from Juice WRLD to Lil Xan. And if he can't even gain the support of Juice's fans, then this just becomes using the name of a late artist who passed away in extremely unfortunate and sad circumstances in order to gain sympathy from the wider industry, which is also just kind of pathetic in my eyes.
Stat Quo, lawyer up, because seriously, I'm coming for you, bro. I'm literally coming for you. That's fucked up. It's really fucked up what you did to me, man.
By the way, it's now almost a year later and he still hasn't attempted to sue Stat Quo, just letting you know.
And give me my fucking car back. It's all my money put into the fucking car. And you want the rest of the $30K? Are you kidding me? And his excuse is, yo, I don't have a license. I do have a license. It's suspended. But like, I want my fucking car back. Jesus Christ, bro.
I don't care about the whole car thing, simply because you can't really prove car ownership either way from the outside looking in. But what I will say is that for a rapper that's supposedly so rich, he really seems to care a lot about that $30K car. But shouldn't that just be pocket change for you if you were really that rich? So after Lil Xan's outburst on social media, Adam22 from the No Jumper podcast, one of the few rap outlets that were consistently giving Lil Xan a platform for him to speak on, actually jumped to Lil Xan's manager Stat Quo's defense, because he does know him personally, and he called out Lil Xan on how he still, after all this time, can't even take accountability for his own actions.
I was up close and personal, granted not for the whole time, but for plenty of the shit with you and Stat, and I saw nothing but him trying to push you in the right direction to make smart moves with your career. I saw him use his vast network of connects to get you collabs with artists like YG and all these people that were not going to do songs with you otherwise. And I just wholeheartedly do not believe for a second that Stat Quo wanted you fucked up on drugs at all. I know for a fact he wanted the best for your career.
And I honestly believe Adam22 on everything he says, because he just has zero reason to lie, and he also has a track record of keeping it real on his platform. But also because it just makes more sense from a logical point that if you really had this abusive manager while also being a public figure that's constantly around other people and other media outlets as well, somebody would have picked up on the fact that your manager was like highly abusive. And the fact that they didn't basically confirms, to me at least, that Lil Xan is making this whole thing up to gain sympathy.
girls all say I'm the awkwardest person, but I'm awesome and perfect, the raw is for certain.
Alright, another time Lil Xan embarrassed himself this year was when he decided to go on tour, and a few days after announcing his tour, he screwed over everybody else involved by randomly dropping out of the tour due to management complaints. Okay, so back in April, Lil Xan announced that he was starting a tour with him as the headliner. Here's the poster for it. And when this happened, immediately I was like, who the hell is booking Lil Xan for a tour in 2022? I mean, like, this guy might have 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify, but 95% of them are streaming his old songs from like 2017. And in terms of actual fans, I can barely imagine him being able to pull 50 of them to one of his shows, cause this guy has successfully driven away almost his entire fan base over the past few years. But who was he even touring with? Ironically, a band going by the name of Dropout Kings, who frankly I wasn't even aware of cause they aren't necessarily involved in the hip hop genre, which also explains why their manager thought it was a good idea to book Lil Xan for a tour, cause anyone actually involved in rap knows Lil Xan has fallen off the face of the earth. Anyway, after only 1 or 2 shows, Lil Xan decided to ditch this tour entirely and promptly got called out. Here in this Instagram post, Adam Raimi says, due to Lil Xan dropping off the tour, tonight's show is cancelled. Tomorrow's show is cancelled as well. We are trying to save any show we can and perform for you all. Straight up fuck Lil Xan 100%, I don't even care, dude is a total piece of trash for doing this to all the staff and artists involved in this. He decided to do this to everyone after everyone already left for tour, then he doesn't even show up to his set. We're still reaching out to the promoters on the remaining shows. The show must go on, we'll make it worth it. Alright, so obviously this made Lil Xan look like a complete asshole. Like, why would he agree to go on tour only to drop out immediately, therefore screwing over everybody in the process? Nobody really understood what was going on, so he responded in some now deleted Instagram posts saying, your team did not have any accommodations or travel or anything a tour should. You just wanted to promote your homies under my name and we tried to work it out, but your team is obviously new at this. So this is just the usual response you would expect from Lil Xan at this point, just blaming everybody else for his own mistakes, claiming other people are taking advantage of him, and failing to admit that he did anything wrong at all. Fun fact, Lil Xan has been a rapper for 6+ years and never once finished a tour he was on. If you guys were smart, you wouldn't burn bridges like that and act like you had the tour planned right. But have fun on your fuck Lil Xan tour. This is a prime example of Lil Xan's delusions. He actually thinks that artists in 2022 shouldn't burn bridges with him if they wanna make it in the industry or something. And it's like, Lil Xan, you are the most, even though I hate that term, irrelevant rapper of 2022. Somebody like Pop Hana or Stay Solid Rocky, they all got more respect and say in the game than you do, and everyone has a way higher chance of making a comeback than Lil Xan. I will sooner predict Lil Pump to suddenly drop a banger viral hit than Lil Xan. There is no shot this guy is ever making a comeback. And just for the record, his supporting act Dropout Kings, their most recent music has equal to, if not more streams on Spotify than Lil Xan's recent music. So honestly, they could probably sell more tickets to shows than Lil Xan himself. I would even go as far as to say that a tour called Fuck Lil Xan Tour will probably pull more people than Lil Xan headlining a tour himself. That's how bad his reputation has become. Now, why did he really leave the tour though? Well, under this post he also commented, I just got out of rehab 2 to 3 months ago and wanna stay focused on my sobriety, and a tour might damage that. So on the surface that would make sense. Lil Xan couldn't stay on the tour because he wanted to remain sober. Now, we'll get on the sobriety topic later, but this doesn't make any sense once you think about it for longer than 5 seconds. So if Lil Xan really dropped out because he needed to remain sober, why did he agree to go on tour in the first place? These people apparently approached Lil Xan, booked 20 venues with him, made a bunch of posters, and promoted this tour for weeks on his social media before he then realized that actually he can't go on tour because he needs to remain sober. This especially doesn't make any sense because he already dropped out of his last tour because he didn't have an adequate supply of drugs. So obviously his sober excuse is just a bunch of bullshit, and in reality he left the tour for a completely different reason. Because one of the tour organizers came out and actually revealed this to the public.
The real reason Xan dropped out, bro, was because he was not going to get paid the same amount of money once they realized he was only selling 24 tickets at a venue, bro.
So there you have it, Lil Xan with 2 million monthly Spotify listeners, and he sold 24 tickets. That's pretty pathetic, and obviously once the promoters and organizers realized this, they weren't gonna let him have all the luxury expenses like expensive hotels, cars and food during the tour. Therefore he decided to leave because he wasn't being treated like a star. Which, by the way, he is not a star anymore. He hasn't been popular in years, so it was entirely fair for him to not be treated like one. But hey, at least Dropout Kings actually ended up finishing the tour.
She says that I'm thirsty, I say she looks hungry.
So the next situation happened right around the end of January 2022, when completely out of left field, Lil Xan suddenly made a tribute post to the late Mac Miller, who obviously passed away in 2018 due to drug-related reasons, on what would have been his 30th birthday, and Lil Xan even posted a really heartfelt caption under the post, which, as a really big Mac Miller fan myself, felt very surprising coming from a guy like Lil Xan. Now, Lil Xan did express his love for Mac Miller on social media before, but this finally felt like Lil Xan did something positive for once. Now obviously some people after seeing this would jump to the conclusion that he's trying to leech off a dead artist's fan base, but just judging off that post alone, I would have disagreed on that. I personally thought he might just actually be like genuinely showing some love to a deceased artist he was a fan of, but of course I was wrong as always, because it's Lil Xan after all. So while posting about Mac Miller on Instagram, he also accompanied that post with a few posts on the Mac Miller subreddit. Now let me just prefix this by making this clear. If you are someone who has done so much fucked up shit like Lil Xan has, publicly disrespecting some of the all-time greatest rappers, scamming and lying to your fans, pulling a gun out at people, etc., you need to expect some type of hate regardless of what you are doing and where you are posting on the internet, cause you're just a hated person at that point. You can't expect for everyone to be blessing you with positive comments just cause one time you made a genuinely heartfelt post, and neither should you, cause you gotta live with the consequences of your actions. Anyway, I'm just pointing that out because after posting on the subreddit, he had this to say in his Instagram story.
Well, I just deleted the Reddit app. I love that app so much, but I didn't realize posting it would attract the stupid ass Playboy Cardi fan base to it, and now I'm deleting it, and yeah, thanks guys.
So he deleted his Reddit post about Mac Miller because the Playboy Cardi fanbase bullied him off the platform. That makes zero sense, no matter how you put it. Why would the Playboy Cardi fanbase be guarding the Mac Miller subreddit? Their music has nothing in common and they barely have any fan overlap. And most people are not responding negatively to a post like this. And that's obviously because it's an overall respectful post honoring a fallen legend of the genre. Some people were just hating on Lil Xan simply because he's Lil Xan. But he now tries to leech off Mac Miller's fanbase by being like, see, I just want to be out there supporting Mac Miller and all those evil Playboy Cardi stans are attacking me. Please support me, Playboy Cardi haters and Mac Miller stans. Now me personally, I hate Playboy Cardi and I love Mac Miller, but even I am able to see through Lil Xan's desperate clout grab. He's just trying to leech off every audience he can possibly reach.
She blocked me from her page, then reported me for spam. We ain't nothing that official, but I'm sorta like her man.
Alright, so the next one might be the worst example of Lil Xan's blatant hypocrisy. Shout out to the Instagram page @rappersdownbad that made me aware of what was going on here. So apparently Lil Xan, who previously claimed to be sober ever since the start of 2022, decided to launch a drug, gummy and joint company by posting this video on Instagram. By the way, I have to mute it because he uses copyrighted music in it.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram too. Oh, your hair smells nice. Is that new shampoo? Tell me why do you ignore every text that I send? I don't wanna make it weird, I just wanna be your friend. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram too. Oh, your hair smells nice. Is that new shampoo? Tell me why do you ignore every text that I send? I don't wanna make it weird, I just wanna be your friend.
So he's now either high or pretending to be high off his gummies. Gummies which according to the official website have weed in them. Plus on the website you can also literally just order a joint. So there's no mistaking that these products that are being sold here are in fact drugs, at least partially. So anyone that's out here consuming these products is not sober. So here's our problem. Lil Xan claimed to be sober since January. Yet in May he releases a drug company featuring a promotion video where he claims to have taken these drugs. You see how that's a blatant contradiction? Meaning there's only two possible truths here. Either Lil Xan is actually sober and stopped taking drugs, which would then mean he lied to his fans about actually trying his product and just released a product that he himself never even tried out. So he wouldn't even possibly know whether the product is even good or not. Or if it even works or not. Like maybe it doesn't even get you high. He would have no way of knowing because he wouldn't have tried it. Or option option B, Lil Xan actually took these drugs and lied about being sober. And don't even try to hit me with the, oh, addicts fall back into their addictions most of the time anyway, cause it's really hard to actually beat an addiction without relapsing at some point, cause that statement in itself may be true, but it would still mean that Lil Xan willingly lied to his fans about being sober and healthy for months, all while secretly working on a drug company, cause you don't just create what is essentially a cannabis selling company in a day or two. This launch has been planned for weeks or months in advance, and all this time Lil Xan expects people to believe he's been sober?
Serious?
I don't believe that for a second, no way man. So either way, regardless of what happened here, the outcome is that Lil Xan yet again lied to his fans directly. By the way, I have no idea how releasing what is essentially a glorified weed company is even remotely legal. Well, I guess California really is a very weird place.
Attractive as a mug, so I asked her for a hug. She said no, I'm in a hurry and I have to get the lunch. Played it off like it's cool, but I was absolutely crushed.
Alright, so you know what I'm wondering right now? What's the most popular thing that happened to Lil Xan last year? So let's just search him on YouTube sort by last year, and it's not even something Lil Xan has created himself, but instead it's a Sunny V2 YouTube video on Lil Xan's downfall, standing tall with almost 10 million views. Now this is a very informative video documenting Lil Xan's story incredibly well, and I highly recommend giving this video a watch if you haven't already. But one person that wasn't a fan of this Sunny V2 video was Lil Xan himself. Now just for perspective, this video has more views than all of Lil Xan's songs from this and last year combined. So people care way more about his downfall than his actual music. So this was a huge deal for Lil Xan, and he responded in the worst way possible, captioning an Instagram story with "didn't want to even let people know how bad it was affecting my mental health. But I feel I should have been in the hospital on a 5150. Please stop speaking about me if you don't know me. I'm a human being just like you." Now on one hand, I do have some sympathy for Lil Xan because he keeps getting hate from every corner of the internet, and this Sunny V2 video exposed him to a whole new audience. But on the other hand, it's entirely his fault for failing and disappointing his fans over and over again, and therefore giving Sunny V2 enough ammunition to make a video about him in the first place. And it's a pretty fair video, because he just objectively talks about all the bad things Lil Xan has done in his career, and I think that's a positive thing, because Lil Xan, again, he should have to face the consequences of his actions, in my opinion. Anyway, so Lil Xan is obviously trying to say, yo, look how my mental health is being destroyed by this YouTuber guy. You all need to stop supporting him and support me instead. But the reality of the situation is this guy claims that his own manager tried to make him a drug addict and stole his car. But now he's out here saying the guy who's really responsible for ruining his life is the Australian former Fortnite YouTuber. Yeah, no shot. It's another desperate cry for sympathy, and it's so obvious.
Asked her for a number and told her we should talk more. She wrote back, don't you know that I'm a sophomore?
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to touch on, which was just a constant on Lil Xan's social media throughout the past like 16 months or so, is him promoting and shilling these obvious crypto scams and drug pulls in order to make a quick buck. There's countless examples of this happening. Here are some on screen right now, and the way this works is he gets paid to make a tweet promoting one of these scams, and when he drops that tweet, all his fans will be buying these tokens, while the original investors that bought the token right at the start sell right at the moment where he promotes in order to make as much money as possible, and afterwards all of these tweets then get deleted. For instance, all the ones I just showed you right now in this video are now deleted as well. Basically he's doing what Jake Paul does as well, just tweeting, yo, check out this new crypto NFT coin, it's gonna go to the moon. And then it loses like 95% of its value, and Lil Xan never talks about it again. I mean, this is largely why I don't have any sympathy for Lil Xan or Diego or whatever you want to call him, because while some of his fans might be feeling bad for him because of his mental health or his drug problems or just his overall demons as a human being, he will then still in return scam these same fans out of their money. The only people that actually might care about him, he's scamming them, which is obviously just despicable behavior that I don't agree with in any way.
Don't matter to me, see actually, I'm the best in the game, all these rappers are weak.
Now, I don't like just criticizing someone without actually telling that person what they should do to improve, because at the end of the day, I want to help this obviously mentally ill rapper to some extent. Like, I'm not just making a video to shit on him. So some things are obvious, like stop promoting crypto scams and lying to your fans about being sober, but the fundamental problem with Lil Xan is that he's still living in 2017. He still thinks he is this popping rapper when in reality he's a has-been, and he wants to stay relevant so desperately that he ends up doing all these publicity stunts that only harm his image more. And because of that, if I were Lil Xan, I would just take a break from social media. Don't post anything, don't make any music, just take a break, focus on yourself while trying to get sober. And that break could take a few months or even a year, and then he might be able to get back online as less of an embarrassment and maybe even make some decent music again. But honestly, Lil Xan was never even a talented artist in the first place, and I don't think there's any chance of him being able to make a comeback. So I would just advise him to stop being a rapper altogether, because it's not doing him any favors at all, and just focus on something else, like choose a different career path.